Hey there, in today's video I'm going to preview the Nike Alphafly 3 compared to its siblings, the Vaporfly 3 and the Alphafly 2 and 1, and also the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro Evo 1. I'm making this video because world records were recently set in the Nike Alphafly 3 and the Adidas Adios Adizero Pro Evo 1 in Berlin and Chicago, the marathons this year 2023. The Alphafly 3 was just announced to go on sale in January 2024. I thought I'd preview the shoe and go through my thoughts. As always, there are chapter markers down below so you can skip on through to the bits you might be interested in. Let's get going. As this is a preview, I don't have the shoes to test, but thankfully all those brilliant athletes tested them in the recent marathons, and we can look at some of the Instagram imagery from the athletes and from Nike and from Adidas. And try and draw some conclusions from there, as well as making reference to the Alphafly, the Alphafly 2, and also the Vaporfly 3, all by Nike. In terms of design, I'm really looking at the very limited imagery that Nike have released. They released a side profile of the Alphafly 3 on Instagram and various other pictures. But by taking that and other images from Nike and flipping some of them to get them side by side and various other bits and pieces, we can compare these shoes by looking at them in Photoshop. I'm imagining that Nike are trying to cut down the weight of the Alphafly 2, which in my experience is a heavy shoe. If you look at the upper in the shoe, it looks substantially like the Alphafly 2, but lightened. It seems to be a bit lower at the back. The front loop here, that's a pull tab on the Alphafly 2 is not there. This section seems to be lower in terms of the upper. This construction at the rear of the Alphafly 2 is heavier and sort of more to it than in the Alphafly 1. I suspect they're going back more towards the Alphafly 1 with a less robust heel. And yeah, other than that, the upper seems to be the same, lightweight, atom knit, fly knit construction. The major changes to the shoe all seem to be down in the midsole area. First of all, this is the Alphafly 2, and there's an open area behind the pods, which seems to be more fully enclosed. Also, the rear here, this sort of shape at the back where it tapers out, that seems to be trimmed down significantly. There's a bit of a cantilever here, but essentially it comes back really from the heel down. There's less foam there. Also, you can see a shadow line here where this rear section seems to be narrower, which is, in my view, long overdue. And also at the front, you can see, this is the Endorphin Pro 3 by Saucony. There's a little slot here. You can see that sort of slot where you can see the carbon on the some of the imagery of the Alphafly 3. And you can also see the same towards the rear. And it looks like they've significantly reduced the foam to add lightness. The outsole on the Alphafly 3 looks to be pretty similar in terms of materials, more like the Alphafly 2 with this sort of pattern on the front rather than the Alphafly, which had a sort of wavy sort of motion. The shoe, when you look at it from the side, seems to be very flat on the ground. I put them I flipped one and adjusted them in Photoshop so that I'm really trying to get the size from the front here to the heel here and line those up. And it looks to me like the rocker is further forward, more pronounced, but further forward, which is interesting because Adidas made a big play of moving their pivot point at the back for their rocker shape. So that will be interesting to test in reality. The most interesting specification is the weight. I take a UK men's 12, a US men's 13, and an EU 47.5. And in this Alphafly 1, these weigh 271 grams, 9.56 ounces. The Alphafly 2 got heavier at 308 grams, 10.86 ounces. But they are, the Vaporfly 3 eclipses those in terms of lightness. It's 242 grams, 8.54 ounces. The Adidas Pro Evo 1, the Adios Evo Pro 1, based on what Adidas said and on some math I did on the previous video that I'll link at the end, I estimate those in the same size to be about 176 grams or 6.21 ounces, considerably lighter than all of these Adidas shoes. But what is interesting is Adidas said that a lot of that weight came out of the outsole, and they had a slick outsole for that Wade shoe, but the actual shoe that Tigst Assefa broke the world record in Berlin had a grooved outsole. So it'll be interesting to see how much that weighed. I'm expecting when the Alphafly 3 goes into production that it should weigh a little bit less than the Alphafly 1, probably about 260 grams, 9.17 ounces. I'm only imagining that, I'm only guessing that, and you might have a different view, but I think, yeah, Nike probably have lightened it. You can see in the pictures, and certainly that would have been one of the first things I would have been doing if I was designing the Alphafly 3. I find it really interesting to compare the Alphafly 2 and the Vaporfly 3 in terms of their bulk and their size. If I lift them up here to the camera, you can see that the Vaporfly 3 has a much narrower rear than the Alphafly 2. It measures about 80 millimeters versus 108 millimeters for the Alphafly 2, which is over 4 inches wide. Quite a wide rear on the Alphafly 2, which I don't really understand. I mean, when you compare the front, they're not too far off. The sort of forefoot is not that much different between the two. But the rear is. Now, I know it's not so easy just to cherry pick parts of the shoe and say that will go with that. It doesn't quite work that way. It needs to be a composite dynamic object. But the reality is that most of the runners, when they're going faster, certainly when I'm going faster, I'm typically a midfoot to heel striker, but when I'm going faster, I'm on the forefoot. And I'm assuming anyone breaking a world record in the marathon is primarily on their forefoot, which makes me question why there is such a wide rear on the Alphafly 2. But I think they have slimmed that down considerably, and they've certainly taken away this bulky projection at the back. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see and test them in reality. Adidas got a lot of criticism for the one and done ethos of the Adios Pro Evo 1. The idea that they're only suitable for running one marathon and then discarded. The Alphafly, by way of example, I mean, I typically would only run one marathon in the shoe, but would do a lot of training in them. All of these three shoes here have pretty similar mileage kilometers in them. The Alphafly 1, this has 95.71 kilometers, 59.47 miles. The upper is perfect. The base is a bit worn at the back here. I use this for my gut busters when I'm trying to check and compare this shoe over a kilometer to other shoes. This is what I keep that one for. The Alphafly 2, the only one of these shoes I haven't run a marathon in, but these have 99.04 kilometers, 61.54 miles in them, and they're a bit bashed up at the rear. But other than that, they're in perfect condition, and I use them for speed training at the moment. I decided not to run a marathon in them, so I'm speed training them. These, the Vaporfly 3s, these also have 92.80 kilometers, 57.66 miles, very similar. And again, they're slightly worn here. All of these shoes, so effectively they've all run 2 marathons distances. I ran the Rotterdam Marathon in these, and these will be getting an outing again soon. But yeah, the Nike ones, they seem to be more sustainable. They seem to be lasting longer than the projected length of the Adidas. In terms of grip and stability, all of these are high stack shoes. They're all within a millimeter of the 40 millimeter world athletic height for marathon shoes. They're all great in a straight line, not so great high stack on going around the corners. I certainly wouldn't want to be in the Adidas slicks in anything like damp conditions or on any bends, and hence I think it's why they came with a health warning, and why they also had limited release, and why Tigst Assefa ran in a slightly different version in the Berlin Marathon. But yeah, I'm expecting the grip and the traction to be pretty similar in the Alphafly 3 as it is in the Alphafly 2 and 1. To talk about performance, the men's world record was set by Kelvin Kiptum in the Chicago Marathon 2023 in the Nike Alphafly 3 prototype. The women's world record was set in Berlin 2023 by Tigst Assefa in the Adidas Adizero Pro Evo 1. So both shoes hold world records. Of the fastest marathons in the world, in terms of the men's, all of those have been run in Nike shoes. Eliud Kipchoge has run 5 of them. Kelvin Kiptum has run 3 of the world's fastest marathons. They're the only marathons he seems to have run. And the other 2 are by Kanisha Bekele and Biranu Legacy. So Nike have run, the world record this time was set in the Alphafly 3 prototype, and previously by the Alphafly 2 when Kipchoge broke it in Berlin 2023. To look at the women's world records, well, the world record is held by Tigst Assefa, as I mentioned, set in Berlin this year. But interesting, Sifan Hassan ran in the Nike Alphafly 2 and set the 2nd fastest marathon of all time in Chicago, and that's on the back of the World Athletics. I think she did 6 weeks training, so an amazing run. It was brilliant to watch. She makes for a brilliant watching her interview. Really interesting person. But yeah, she ran the second fastest marathon of all time in the Nike Alphafly 3 prototype. And then just to compare, Benson Kipruto came a distant second in Chicago this year. He was running in the Adidas Adios Pro Evo 1. And my guess is that Adidas were hoping that he would break the world record there. As it happens, he ran faster than he did the previous year. 2 hours, 4 minutes and 2 seconds versus 2 hours, 4 minutes and 24 when he won in 2022. But yeah, Kelvin, Kiptum ran away with it. In terms of cost, let's just look at the Adidas first. They were €500, $500, £400, 770 Australian dollars if you could get them. Now, interesting, they're available on eBay. You could get them in a UK size 10, a UK size 9, and a UK size 8. As of yesterday, they were £1,500 for the size 9 and 10, which were offered by the same person, which is interesting. If there's only 521 pairs of shoes, you're wondering how this guy got 2 pairs, but he had 2 pairs, and he also had previously sold other Adidas shoes, so he's got some sort of in. The other one, interesting enough, was bought in, the seller claimed to have bought it in the Dubai Adidas store, and that was in a size 8. So yeah, off to eBay if you want those. So you can't get the production version yet. My guess is that when they come out, they'll be about $400, probably €400 and about £300. That's only guess, but certainly I don't think anyone will be paying the $500, €500 for them on the basis that it's the second batch. So yeah, I expect them to come down, but not so far that they would undercut all the people who bought them the first time. So if indeed anyone did actually buy them the first time, but we'll see. The Alphafly used to be the most expensive carbon plate shoe on the block. When other shoes were about $250, it was nearer to $300. As of today, it's $285 or €309.99, £279.95, and 370 Australian dollars. Usually the euro and the dollar price are much closer on Nike, but my guess is that when it's released, the Alphafly 3 will be somewhere around the $330, €330 and equivalent. I think it's likely to go reasonably higher, probably not as high as the Adidas shoe. Should you buy either of these two shoes, the Adidas or the Nike? Well, I was intrigued by both of them and I wanted to buy both of them. I had originally thought that the Alphafly 3 would be out in September of 2023, and my plan was to get that for the New York Marathon. The Adidas shoe was announced. I thought, oh, I'll try and get that, and who knows, if you ended up with both of them, you could do a shoe off and pick one to run the New York Marathon. Neither of those plans transpired, and so yeah, I won't be running the New York Marathon in either of the two shoes, but I am interested in both of them. As it happens, I think the Adidas one might suit me a little bit better. The Alphafly 1 and 2 don't suit me anywhere near as well as the Vaporfly 3, which really does suit my type of running, in which, yeah, it's New York for the Vaporfly 3 for me. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. If you did, it would be great if you hit the like button. As always, there'll be lots of stuff in the description below, and I'll happily answer any questions you put into the comments. There'll be a big blue subscribe button popping up there, and some raid videos there. Thanks for watching. Until the next video, just keep running along.